Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Amherst Traffic Safety Board meeting. Today is Wednesday, October 10th. Our first order of business here is just introductions of those on the board that are in attendance tonight. I am Eric Frost, Chairman, and we'll just go around the table here.
Maxwell Khan, member.
Patricia Dunn, member.
Dan Ryder, member.
Nick Alterio, member.
And we also have liaisons with us this evening.
Bill Elspeth, Highway Department. Scott Marshall, Planning Department.
Chris Schregel, engineering liaison, traffic safety coordinator.
Councilman Mike Sukala, liaison to the committee.
Okay, with that, we do have 6 in attendance tonight from the board, so we do have a quorum, so we are able to vote on agenda items this evening, which is good news for those that are here. With that, our next item on the agenda that we have to go through is just well, let me just go through technical issues here. Should an alarm sound in the building, the emergency exits are to my left, your right, out the door, proceed to the front or rear of the building. If the alarm is sounding, we would ask that you don't use the elevator. But other than that, hopefully we don't have to deal with that this evening. With that, we will move to the next order of business, which is a review of the minutes from the September 3rd Traffic Safety Board meeting. With that, I will open it up to the board for any discussion or corrections. None being heard or seen, I will make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Dan. Any further comments or discussion? None being heard, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried 6-0 to approve the minutes. With that, I'll just go into some housekeeping issues for this evening. We, just so everyone here that is in the audience is aware, we do not go through the agenda in the order that you are, in the order of the agenda. We go through the agenda in the order that you are signed in for the evening. We will then go through all of the new business and old business. So if you are here for a site plan, the site plans are handled after the new and old business, and we will give you the opportunity for those. We will try to move through the agenda this evening as quickly as possible to get through everything in a timely manner. Just if you are here to speak on an agenda item this evening, we would ask that you come up to the podium over here, state your name and address for the microphone. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. That's why we ask you to speak into the microphone so that the recording system and live stream picks you up. With that, when you are up at the microphone, you'll be provided 3 minutes to speak to address the board. Remember, we all have this very big packet that all of us up here are aware of, so any correspondence that you have had with the town, we have a copy of that. So there's no need to repeat anything that you've already done through the town. We've already read through all of that, so use your 3 minutes wisely. We have a bell up here. When you're at about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, we'll give you a single ring of the bell to let you know that you're getting close to your time. And then at the 3 minute mark, we will give you a double ring of the bell. With that, just so everybody is aware as well, there's a couple issues that will continue to come up throughout the evening, which is related to stop sign compliance. Just a reminder that stop signs are a traffic control device, not a speed control device. So we will talk about that a little bit more in detail if that comes up this evening. And also, what is my other normal housekeeping item that I'm missing this evening?
The stop signs.
I did stop signs.
Speed bumps.
Speed limit. So the speed limit in the town is posted at 30 miles per hour. That is the town-wide speed limit. That is what is legally allowed by the town. There is areas in the village and other townships that have a lower speed limit than that. In order for us to reduce the speed limit below the 30 miles per hour, that will take town board action. And then also when it comes to speed control devices, this board is in favor of speed humps, speed bumps, and other traffic calming devices. However, any action to do that would also require approval by the town board to move forward with any of that and setting policy and precedent for that to occur within the town. The other thing that I forgot to mention is this board, as we go through your agenda item this evening, we will let you know where the agenda item stands when we close the item for the evening. We have the liaisons here this evening. This is not a law-making board. We are an advisory board to the town board. So any action that requires legal action will go over to Councilmember Zukala to present before the town board to take that legal action. If it is just recommendations to the departments in the town, like the building department, highway department, or others, that will be referred to the liaisons here to handle. So we'll update you on the agenda items throughout the course of the evening as to what the next step is. With that, we will move to the order that we are signed in this evening. The first item is, ironically, the first item that's on the agenda as well, which is item number 1, Tech Drive, Stoneham Way, and Main Street, request for a signalized intersection. Chris, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. For those members who've been on this board a long time, this should look familiar. We'll go over the history for those new members and then jump into discussion. Like you said, Tech Drive, Main, Stoneham, it is currently a stop-controlled intersection at a state highway, Main Street, Route 5. The request that came in is from the neighborhood to the north, Graythorne, and they are asking for a signal-controlled intersection. The reasons identified by the resident is that there's been a history of crashes at Tech and Main, and there's the existing conditions that are presently there now, along with the proposed ECC sports playing field project is what they call a tipping point, and they think now is the time to install a signal. So this is the location. We're again on Main Street, kind of central to central east Amherst. Tech Drive is actually owned by ECC. Stoneham is a local road, and Main is a New York State DOT highway. Therefore, the intersection is the jurisdiction of New York State. The history, I'm not going to go through every one, but you've been provided in your packet a long history dating at least 10 years that the Traffic Safety Board's been involved. The Traffic Safety Board has requested multiple times that DOT study, perform warrant analyses, and come up with a determination on whether or not a signal is necessary there. In years past, they have acknowledged the request and have done determinations stating that a 3-color signal will not be installed for various reasons. Some of those reasons, I think I have it. The last one that we have on record is from May 31st, 2018, where they adjusted the directional split of traffic using a different distribution to favor a potential signal, and that did not meet the warrants either. They added the EduKids daycare facility anticipated traffic, and the volumes and the warrants were still not met. That's the last time that they, to our knowledge, has conducted a review. We did ask that a re-review occur. The planning department sent a correspondence in 2019. And with that was a traffic impact study that showed that warrants were met with the YMCA build-out. I do want to state that YMCA never did build those improvements. Therefore, that undermines that study conducted by that CNS engineers for that petitioner. But here you go with something that indicates that it would be warranted with that ECC addition, although they do caveat it in several ways, saying that DOT would have to look at other planned development, DOT would have to look at spacing of signals, etc. Again, that's in your packet. These are the nearby signals, one to the west at South Youngs and another one at Spindrift. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the board.
Thank you. We will open it up for public comment, and our first person signed in this evening is Fred Mikulski.
Good evening, and thank you. Fred McCuskey, President of the Graythorne Board of Managers. And I just have a brief statement here to read. As we have noted in our August and September 2025 communications to various state, county, town officials and departments, installing signalization to provide proper and safe traffic control at the Main Street, Stoneham, Tech Drive intersection is very much needed at this time. Traffic concerns and difficulties turning left onto or off Main Street from any intersection direction have been in question since 2008 as service demands on this intersection increase. Graythorne community has been built out according to the development plan and conditions approved by the Town Planning Board in 2007. For our community, the only way to the only means to directly access Main Street is with Stoneham through here. However, through the years, service demand on this Main Street intersection has increased to the south with the addition of the Independent Health YMCA on Tech Drive, and it's continuously increasing membership, currently at approximately 8,000. And from the north along Stoneham Way, with the establishment of daycare services contributing an average of 80 families accessing the Bright Path Child Care Center on a daily basis. Also along Stoneham Way, the current development of Stoneham Place townhomes will add an additional 27 residences with associated weekly maintenance contractors and deliveries. Adding on to this existing service demand will be the future ECC $5.7 million state-of-the-art multi-sports complex with its stadium seating and expanded field house. By its location on the ECC campus, we believe the Main Street Stoneham Tech Drive intersection will be the primary access and exit point for this facility. With this collective dependence on usage growth, the ability to safely navigate through this intersection will continue to degrade. For example, the growing impatience of drivers attempting to turn left onto Main Street from either Stoneham or Tech Drive. The maneuver used by these drivers is to enter Main Street in the opposite direction of traffic, to go around east and westbound vehicles queued in a center turning lane, then to merge from a position initially blind by the queued vehicles into the Main Street traffic, which is or exceeding the designated 40 miles per hour. This type of reckless maneuver under the existing conditions, it is certain that as demand grows at this intersection, the increase of near misses and accidents of varying degree can be expected to rise. Thus, the Great Thorn Board of Managers strongly encourages the town of Amherst and the New York State DOT to install signalization at this intersection at this time to provide safe and controlled navigation by traffic and pedestrian walkers, runners, cyclists, and who are ever present along the stretch of Main Street. Furthermore, having signalization in place now will mitigate the additional traffic associated with the ECC $5.7 million sports complex that will only make the ability to safely navigate this intersection more complex without proper traffic control. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. With that, I will ask if there is anyone else this evening signed in that would like to speak on this item. There's 2 more people signed in, but one is circled, one says no, so. Okay. Okay. With that, I will close the public comment period and open it up to the board. I will also make note that Helene Sanders from the board is also now present with us, so that gets reflected correctly in the minutes for who is here and who is not. Okay, I will just start the conversation on this one before we open it up to the board. As you are aware, this board is completely in favor from the past history that this should be a signalized intersection. We have requested multiple times to the New York State DOT to conduct analysis of the intersection for the signalization as you're asking for. I'll just open it up here to the board on that comment just to confirm that we are all still in agreement that we would refer this to New York State DOT for analysis to determine if signalization is warranted. Is there any objection to that by anybody? So with that, I will just make the motion, Chris, that we send another letter to New York State DOT requesting the analysis of the intersection as requested by the residents. Actually, I shouldn't have said I want to make the motion. I will hold on that for a second. The only question that I have to the board members on that item is, do we want to send that recommendation to the New York State DOT for just that intersection? Or would we like to have New York State DOT expand that, ask for that, and in addition, ask for them to study the entire corridor between Young's and Spindrift? Because from the responses that we received in the back, there's been reference to the proximity to those other 2 intersections being part of the reason to not put a signal at this area. So if we write a letter to New York State DOT asking the concerns that we have regarding this intersection, but at the same time also review signalization of the other two intersections for analysis to determine if those are also signalized properly and how it would impact this intersection as well. My thought behind that is if we ask for more on this than just that intersection, we might be more likely to get a response. From a conversation that I did have with Chris, we did do a quick review, Chris, of the intersection of Youngs and Main Street. And I think, what did we show on that, Chris? In the past 3 years, there's been 60
61.
accidents
Yep.
at the intersection of Main and Youngs, which that alone should require them, or is justified to ask for a further study and analysis of the corridor of traffic in that entire area.
I'm with the Graythorne Board, and the councilman may be, I don't know if I spoke before them, but there was a rezoning, maybe a year and a half ago or so, with a piece of property right in front of the Graythorne townhomes that are going in. It's a single property, and we thought we could use that as an opportunity to speak on the issue of signalization. And the supervisor, Brian Kulpa, had mentioned that a traffic study for the entirety of Main Street was being discussed at that time. It's at least a year and a half ago. And I just wondered if there's anything been happening with that, traffic study of.
That I don't know.
Okay.
I don't have any knowledge of that. I don't.
I was led to believe it was from the 290 going east. That would have taken it to transit, actually. It was going to be some discussion of signalization. And again, recognizing Young, Spendrift, I get it, but, we've got certain problems with, as Fred mentioned, left turns, et cetera, out of there. And
So I can confirm, as well as Scott Marshall from the Planning Department, that the resident in the back is correct. It was for the western portion of Main Street going west, not towards transit, although that doesn't consider, other efforts by State DOT to do a coordinated signal timing plan, which to my knowledge has been conducted for the entire corridor of Main Street, including this section.
it has been done.
To my knowledge, yes. So that, that is, again, just trying to figure out the best timing for that corridor. It's not, a full-blown traffic study that we took on for the western portion. But to my knowledge, a coordination plan has been conducted and implemented by the State DOT.
And the other topic that Fred had mentioned was the sports field. For that, there was no traffic study because according to I think the county had said the seeker didn't require a traffic study for that specific, that sports facility that's going to take place it's taking place right now.
Correct.
for
We
those who-
have no.
Mhm. They may have said that there was going to be no impact. End of conversation. Okay. Do you need my
So-
name, by the way?
So thank you for bringing that. Are you Mike or Paul? Paul.
Mr. Chairman, the DOT has a fairly new full-time permanent position traffic engineer. He's been in the seat for a year, and he's obviously new to this problem, although it could be sitting on his desk now. Maybe we kind of direct the letter to him and reference the ECC athletic
Yeah, and I think,
project.
right, and that's where I'm going with this. We continue to send these letters. You can see from the history, we continue to send a letter to New York State DOT regarding this intersection alone, and we keep on getting the same response back. So I'm just trying to think if there's a way, if we ask for more, with a focus on this intersection, but in turn ask for more than that to call their attention to the issues that we have in the area. We have the history of the letter being sent. We have the development of ECC. We have an accident history at Young's and Main Street. We do have the signal already at Spindrift that's there. We have the development of additional houses. We have a lot of stuff that is happening in that area that should be called out in this letter to DOT, referencing these old responses that we've had, and ask them to look at the area with a specific emphasis on this intersection and the impact that it's having in the corridor. So I think right now that the only thing we can do is we can only ask DOT to look at it. We can continue to, you as residents, we do have responses here in our packet from Karen McMahon's office through the Assembly District. Continue to put pressure on her, continue to ask her office to send reference letter to New York State DOT. Chris will provide you a copy of the letter once we send that from the town to DOT. Feel free to forward that again to Karen McMahon's office. Encourage her to write a letter to New York State DOT, encouraging them to follow up to that letter. The more we can get going to the DOT at the same time will hopefully help to influence them to do additional analysis on this corridor. So with that, I will make the motion that we refer a letter to New York State DOT for review of the Tech Drive and Main Street intersection, in addition to the corridor of Young's to Spindrift, including those two intersections as well, for signalization analysis of what should be through that corridor and through that stretch of Main Street based on the development that has taken place. Is there a second to do that?
Second.
So that's a second from Kara. Any further conversation? None being heard. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So that motion carries 7-0 to move that forward. So with that, that is the action that we can take this evening. Hopefully get it on DOT's radar and get them to at least respond to us in some capacity that they will do it, or explain to us again why they will not. Okay? Yep, thank you very much. So with that, we do not have anybody else signed in this evening for new or old business, but we do have a resident that is signed in this evening that for an agenda item, for an item that is not on the agenda. So with that, I am going to make a motion to the board to suspend the agenda at this point and provide the resident an opportunity to speak to us on a non-agenda item. I'll make that motion to do that. Is there a second?
Sure.
So that'll be a second from Max. Any further conversation on that? None being heard. All in favor on the board? Opposed? Motion carried 7-0 to add the agenda item, which I believe is related to Caesar Boulevard. So we'll add Caesar Boulevard to the agenda under the old business section. Item D, this is an agenda item that had been on our agenda historically, and the resident is here to ask some follow-up questions in regard to that. So with that, I will open up the public comment period on this item, and we will decide from there what our next steps are.
Thank you, council members. This all started last year in February 2025, where I asked where the turnaround at the end of Caesar Boulevard be increased so that the school buses, even though that we do live in Williamsville, we are the last street in the Clarence School District. So there is an L-shaped turnaround that is right at the end of Caesar Boulevard that is hidden by one tree up there. It's kind of hard to see. But the Clarence School District bus garage has said that the buses cannot safely turn around there. So this all started from then. I'm trying to get my two kids to be able to get dropped off in front of our house. There are our neighbors directly next to us have two kids as well that get dropped off or that have to walk up to Connie Lane, which is, for us, it's over 500 feet. And from my research that I had, that the max distance for Clarence students to walk to a bus stop is 500 feet. And from Connie Lane to the middle of my driveway is 550 feet. So we are 10% over the limit. I know it doesn't seem much, but as a safety factor for my kids walking that distance day in, day out it's extreme. So through my research, I've also called the Clarence Bus Garage. As I stated, the max distance for them to walk to the bus stop is 500 feet. We are over by 10%. The Clarence Bus Garage does allow their bus drivers to back up, which I know with many correspondence with Mr. Schragle says that Williamsville school bus drivers are not allowed to back up. Which Clarence has also stated that with a bigger turnaround, they would utilize this and as they would do a 3-point turn, as they also do in other spots in Clarence to pick up their kids at the end of a dead-end street. Williamsville students are to be picked up in front of their own homes, which I have been informed of by multiple Williamsville employees. And I'm just asking for the same safety protocols that are provided to them as they are to my kids and any other kids on the street. Wasn't too long ago that I actually had to call the Amherst Police Department because of the fact that there was a suspicious person who was sitting in many people's front yards. We don't have benches. It's not a bus stop anywhere. They did come out and they had a lengthy conversation with that gentleman. I don't know what happened, but I did inform him he didn't do anything. It's just he was a single guy sitting in people's front lawns. And I'm not just saying on the curb, but in the middle of their yards. So this is hence why this safety feature of having the kids able to be dropped off in front of their homes is very crucial. They're in this turnaround that's up there. It's an L-shaped. So, but there is right-of-way space that Williamsville has that they can utilize to increase this turnaround. Now, the depth, Mr. Schragle has said that the space does go farther, but to clear this spot, there's only one major tree that has to be cut down for it to be paved. I don't know what the actual distance is. I've asked Mr. Schragle beforehand, and he said he didn't have that information. I'm just asking for the research to be done to look at this to see if we can increase that turnaround so that it can be utilized for the school bus and the kids' safeties.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. So with that, I will just add that we as a board do not have a lot of information available to us from the last time this was on the agenda to be knowledgeable to speak on this item. I agree. I don't know what the tree is that's there, what the requirements are. I don't know from the standpoint of what the town's directive and policy is regarding turnarounds. Normally turnarounds are there for a highway department for snow removal to be able to turn around their equipment. They're normally not built and designed for buses. That's within the school districts to set their policies. Not sure of all of that. I would need to get more information. I think this board would need more information from planning and highway itself. So I think at this point, the best we could probably do to have ourselves educated and speak of the matter the best way is just have this item officially added to the agenda for the November meeting. And at that point, we can have more information from Chris Riegel and from highway and the town itself as to what is actually in that turnaround, what it would require in order to expand that turnaround, and if expanding that turnaround is for a bus is something that would be in the normal policies, procedures of the town to consider and do. I don't know the answers to that at this point, so we can leave that there as a request of Chris to add to the agenda for November with the attempt to find out that information before now and then, to have that information available to us to have further conversation on that. Is the board in favor of that? Anyone opposed? Okay, so we'll add that back to the agenda in November, and we'll, I'm sure, see you again next month. Yep, thank you. So with that, I'm just going to make a motion to return to our regular agenda. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Second, Kara. Anyone, further conversation? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried 7-0 to return to the regular agenda. With that, we will move to, since we have nobody else signed in for agenda items, we will move to item number 2, Oxford Drive, stop sign compliance at Meadow Lee Drive and Windermere Boulevard intersections. And I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 2 is Oxford Meadow Lee. There is a request for additional stop sign compliance and need for additional pedestrian safety. The reason provided is drivers are not stopping at an all-way stop intersection immediately adjacent to Windermere Elementary School. There are 2 crosswalks there, and many school children are crossing. This is just north of Windermere. Oxford is adjacent to the Windermere campus. It's a T intersection, and this is all, local jurisdiction. Here it is on the screen. It's 30 miles per hour in all directions. There's stop signs on all approaches. There is parking prohibited on the south side of Oxford. There are sidewalks everywhere. As indicated, there are crosswalks on the north and west legs. We have 0 crashes in the past 5 years. We do have an older count. Actually, it's not an old count. I'm sorry. 2025 indicated that approximately 1,000 vehicles per day are traveling on Oxford. And mid-block, not at that intersection, but mid-block, there's a range of speeds 28 to 33 miles per hour for the 85th percentile. Here are the traffic control devices and an aerial of the area. You have type S crosswalks and stop bars. And I do want to make you aware, although I don't know how pertinent it is, that the school district is pursuing an expansion project where they are adding a building on its north side and creating a loop. This is currently under construction. You're seeing a phasing plan or construction plan. So there's not actually gates here. That's just for the, construction control. There will be a loop type of, more like an L-shaped driveway, two-way with parking on the north side and west side. I don't know the full intent of what they're utilizing that for, but this is under construction. We did do a stop sign compliance at the request of the resident, and we are finding that Oxford has, 46% vehicles partially stopping, 15% are not stopping, and they're fully stopping, going, east or west at 39%. Meadow Lee is a little bit better given that it's a T intersection and probably most likely the minor approach. 52% are full stopping. The rest are either partially or not stopping at all. It was indicated by the observer who made this count during the AM peak, 7:45 to 8:45, that a lot of those vehicles that were not stopping were heading to the school parking lot. And again, no crashes in the last 5 years. With that, I'll pass it over to the board.
With that, I'll open it up to the board. Anybody have comments about this? I don't want to say it, but the failure to stop is most likely due to a T intersection with unwarranted stop signs. There's not enough traffic coming from the cross street, which is Meadow Lee, correct? Yep,
Yes.
Meadow Lee Drive. Drivers on that road taking Oxford to and from the school at that time, and local residents know that to be the case. What we see here with the stop sign compliance is consistent with what we see for intersections that are not stop sign controlled correctly. I know we're in a school zone, we're in front of a school, but the corrective action on this would probably be to remove the stop signs on Oxford and turn it into a traditional one-way stop T intersection, which in a school area is never going to get the approval of anyone. I would agree with that. But we would need a pedestrian count to understand how many kids we have crossing, because that's not mentioned in here. So I kind of like the idea. I'm not sure if we could, I'm assuming that that is not an area where we have a crossing guard in the morning. So we probably do not have a high count of kids walking there.
I think it would be rather difficult to remove stop signs adjacent to a school
Correct.
politically.
I agree with what Scott is saying, though. If you remove the stop sign and installed an RRFB, yes, RRFB in place on that crossing there in place of the stop signs, you might get some support for it.
Chairman, there is a crossing guard at Windermere and Oxford, just a couple hundred yards or 100 yards down. So there's a guard there.
Okay. I mean, I guess the only other thing that we do have a crossing guard there. We don't have a crossing guard at the intersection. We do have the new turning loop going into that area, which would call into question potentially of how that turning loop is being used, if we should even have the crosswalk in that area in the street. Would it? Is anyone on this board in favor of removing a stop sign in that area and further studying? Or do we have a feeling this would just remain as is?
I think we hold it until the construction's done. Well, not you, or you know what I mean. Like, your best chance of correcting it would be if the problem goes away based on the new. Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris, could we hold this until completion of construction to look at traffic pattern once that traffic circle is in, once that traffic loop is in, to see what happens there?
Sure, but since we're on notice, is there an appetite to refer to the Amherst Police Department for heightened enforcement?
Yes, we can refer that to Captain Pearson's if you have resources to have in that area during that school time hours.
Yeah, we'll try and this year. We have been at Windermere and Oxford.
You're there,
Devote too much more time to that area.
so you're already there.
We're already there, yeah.
Okay.
Not necessarily at Nutley, but we're at Oxford and Windermere all the time.
Okay.
We've been at some of those stop signs.
Okay. So police will continue to monitor at this point, and the recommendation from Max before us is to hold the item for further consideration upon construction completion to get pedestrian counts at that point and determine what the traffic flow is, to understand if the stop signs continue to be warranted or unwarranted or placed correctly at that intersection to assist. Any further conversation on this item? None being heard, we will close item number 2 for now, until we have more information. And we will move to item number 3, Fairhavens Drive, a request to remove a raised median that was installed for traffic calming.
All right, item 3 is for a request to remove the raised center median at Fairwoods Drive. Again, this has been before you guys a bunch. A little bit of history. Fairwoods was previously a dead-end road with 9 dwellings, had a single access to Hopkins Road. That was all changed, and it was always intended to go through, and that next phase did in fact go through. At the time, this was before the Traffic Safety Board. You looked at various ways to try to control what is potentially opening up a cut-through situation. As such, you had the petitioner install a center median. I think there were some other ideas that were rejected or some back and forth, but this is what was landed on is a center median. This is in the toolkit of FHWA in terms of how to, in terms of a traffic calming scenario or strategy. And that is the topic of the discussion tonight. I think I already discussed this. As well as the island, the Traffic Safety Board also recommended that parking restrictions occur at the intersection and curve. Number 2 is the area where there was potential overflow parking from the nearby mosque. And number 3 is immediately adjacent to the center raised island, now that there's just 12 feet of room adjacent to that. We went to the town board and asked for all 3. And after discussion with the petitioner of Essex Homes, that request was modified significantly. The builder request was asked that the no standing zone immediately adjacent to the island be reduced to 10 foot just beyond that island. You had asked for a lot further adjacent to that island. Here is what was provided to the town board at that public hearing, showing the impacts. I am mentioning this because it does weigh into tonight's discussion. Ultimately, the town board landed on a amended resolution completely removing the no parking zone specific to the mosque overflow. They shortened up the distance at the intersection, and they did follow what the Essex Home representative wanted, which was a 10-foot restriction east and west of that island, shown graphically on the screen here. I'm not going to read all this because it's in your package in terms of the justification for the removal of the center island, but briefly, the resident claims that it does not influence the driver behavior. We do show, and I'll get into this a little bit later, that yes, in fact, there is a reduction of 2 to 4 miles per hour immediately at the island versus mid-block where there's no traffic calming. The resident pointed out that there's some driver confusion and that people are not obeying it properly. When there is a car parked immediately adjacent to that island, there is a tendency for those people to go around the island in the wrong direction. A short observation by myself did show that when parking my vehicle immediately adjacent, although legally adjacent to the island, out of 5 drivers, 3 of them decided to take the wrong way direction, and shown graphically on the screen. If a vehicle is parked at the blue spot, people don't want to be inhibited or slow down, so they're going around the wrong direction. Here's a still picture of that vehicle going in the wrong direction with my town vehicle parked legally right there. If you want to see a video, I do have one. So again, this happened 3 out of 5. Moving on. Next, the further justification is people are hitting that center island sign. A lot of that has to do with the nearby construction. We have since replaced that sign. Thank you, highway. There's event-related congestion that adds to pedestrian travel. So the person's point is this island is not making it safe for pedestrians. And there's limited impact on the overall traffic behavior. This is not part of a broader traffic calming plan. Therefore, it's minimal in terms of its effectiveness. So again, I just wanted to point out we did do a study at the island and not at the island. Here are the results. You got a 26 versus a 29 and a 27 versus a 31, depending on the direction. And at that point, I'll pass it over to public comment.
So Chris, I think it's also important to point out on that last slide that for what the street is, 750 cars moving through that street on a daily basis,
Yes.
which
So-
is a street that has 25, 30 houses.
Yes. And not shown on this, but I can add it. We did do a count in 2023 non-school months, and it was 530. So, you know, a good portion is assumed to be cut through specific to the school.
Okay, thank you. So yes, this board, when that street was proposed, did put in that request for that as a traffic calming measure due to what was anticipated a street to be used as a cut through, since it's a straight cut through street between Heim and Hopkins. I would not be in favor of removing the island as requested by the resident. I would be more in favor of asking the town board to reconsider the parking restrictions in that area to make sure that we have the parking restrictions set to the appropriate safe distances around that island, which would mean we need to probably expand the no parking to the original proposal, which was,
I actually have a slide for this. Sorry. So this slide shows what the original request was, including the verbiage that was provided to the town board.
so
Went
I-
from essentially lot line to lot line on the south.
right, so for the installation of that island that was put in, this should be the parking restrictions that are in place for cars to safely maneuver around that island based on what was done. Therefore, I will make the motion to refer this back to the town board for installation, expansion of the no parking restrictions to the original recommendations from the Traffic Safety Board to meet the requirements of safe passage around the island based on the concerns that have been brought before this board. Is there a second? A second from Max. Any further conversations on that agenda item?
I was just gonna suggest perhaps there's some way of building up the island a little bit more so that you can't drive over it. So if that's something that could be added as well.
So, yes. But let's hold on that for now because that doesn't require town board action.
Thank you.
So with that, any further conversation about referral to the town board for expansion of the no parking as originally requested, as drawn on the screen, due to the concerns that are now occurring because of it not being signed correctly? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 7-0. With that, going back to Kara, I'm not sure we can build it up, but I think we can paint around it. It is not very high in the street. It has the signs that are there. I think when we originally looked at this, I don't know, Chris, if you have any pictures available to you or if you can search anything, that this is more of what it should be. There should be some paint added to the street to increase visibility. You will see some of these also have the curbs painted yellow around them. So I think if we expand the no parking restrictions if the town board moves forward with that action, and we can also ask highway to increase the visibility, add the road paint around the island, that will help to make people realize that there are not cars parked in the way of where they can drive the correct way around the island, to assist with the issues that are going on there and increase visibility. And I think if you also add that paint, it'll also potentially further assist in slowing cars down to have it completely installed properly. So can we just refer that to highway for additional road paint on the island to enhance visibility?
And, I'm not forcing this on you. Do the members have any other ideas? Carrie, you did mention placing some vertical object in the island. try to avoid that because it then become, a danger to the drivers if should they hit it. We try to remove any type of deadly fixed objects that can be hit. Even that sign has a breakaway, feature to it. So the rule of thumb is if it's more dangerous to hit it than not to have it, we typically don't have it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The poles actually have the reflective tape on them. Yep. I think anything that we can do to enhance the visibility of the island will improve the safe passage around the island. So we'll refer that to highway to enhance the visibility of the island to make it safer. With that, any other comments on this item? We'll close item 3 and move to item 4, Drayden and Denrose, request for all-way stop intersection.
Okay, Drayden and Denrose, the initial request was for an all-way stop. Here it is on the screen. We're very northwest Amherst. Please note that there's some inconsistency with the stop signs. Joe McCarthy is stopped while Drayden is allowed to go through. But at the subject intersection, Denrose is stopped and Drayden is stopped, and Denrose is allowed to go through without being stop controlled. The resident brought up there was a recent accident at that intersection. Captain Persons provided the report on that one, and it had nothing to do with stop signs. So we eliminated that one, but there are some other ones that were related to stop signs we'll get into in a minute. Observations by that resident showed that people aren't stopping at the Drayden stop signs. They identified some overgrown foliage at the corners. They identified that Denrose motorists are forced to stop in order to prevent an accident for those missing the stop sign. And they pointed out that there's small children in the area. In a 3-year crash review, there were 3 other crashes on record related to stop sign control and failure to yield the right-of-way. This is a stop sign warrant analysis conducted this year in September. This is just another way to show it. I do show it to you guys in a different fashion, but since I already had it worked up from previous reviews, I stuck with this one. We need 300 vehicles on the major. We're getting 67 in the highest 8 hours. We need 200 on the minor. In the highest 8 hours, we reached 23. So obviously those warrants are not met according to the manual on uniform traffic control devices. In doing a stop sign compliance, actually this isn't too bad compared to what we've reviewed in the past with 25, plus 6, that's 31%, either partially or not stopping at all. And again, we've reviewed this in 06 and 19. Both of those reviews indicated that warrants were not met. Those items were received and filed. In bringing up the analysis to the resident prior to the meeting, he indicated that he acknowledged the reason why stop signs were not placed. And he said anything you can do to help would be appreciated. I mentioned to him that cross traffic does not stop subplaque is in the realm of possibilities, given that there were 3 accidents related to confusion on who stopped. So I figured I'd bring that up to you guys for discussion. That concludes my portion.
Thank you, Chris. Open up to the board for discussion, conversation.
I'm okay for the,
full stops at all the intersections, so they'll be consistent. That might have, might be a reason why drivers aren't complying, is they're confused by the different streets.
So Helene, you're pointing out that there's inconsistency in the neighborhood, and by signing them both all way, that would solve the problem? Okay. Is that a motion or is that just a conversation?
It was this meant as conversation.
do we know which one's the minor, which one's major?
So yeah, good point. So on Denrose, when looking at that all-way stop warrant analysis, Drayton is the minor, and that is stop controlled properly. Denrose is the major, can flow through. I don't have counts about Joe McCarthy.
Yeah.
My suspicion is that Drayton would be the,
Yeah, so I'd be thinking that you switch those.
yeah.
Well, no, I mean, if Drayton's the,
he's-
well, regardless, I mean, if this is correctly signed, I'm okay with all the accidents. I'm okay with the cross traffic doesn't stop. I mean, who does that hurt? But
Yeah, I agree that at this point, placing the cross traffic does not stop is the first line of defense to see if that corrects the issue.
Yeah.
Would not hurt. If that doesn't correct the issue, we can then
Look at-
further and analyze to see if changing stop sign placement or adding stop signs improves it in any other manner.
yeah, I mean, even with the accident history, you're right. That's a pretty good stop sign compliance compared to what we normally see. I mean, we just saw one that was like 30% an hour ago.
Hope things wake up the,
I'm okay with
wake up the trees.
Main artery because Denrose comes from the road there. Yeah,
Boulevard, yeah.
but it goes all the way to Elgin Creek.
Yeah.
The other one, like Joe McCarthy does not, it gets stopped. Pepper Tree does not. Denrose is the only thoroughfare all the way through, so that would be your busiest. Then Drayton, people feed from Niagara Falls Boulevard to get to those side streets. So Drayton is probably like the second busiest street.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean,
So I think the stop signs seem appropriate, even though I see
They're opposite.
Helene's point that that can be confusing. But most people are using that Denrose as a thoroughfare to get to Elgin Creek.
well,
or,
if that's the case, then, and
Yeah.
most people are using it as a through traffic, then it definitely that further supports adding a does not stop sign just because it's people that aren't used to being there.
Agree.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a motion from Max for the installation of does not stop on the stop signs on Drayton. Yeah, the stop signs are currently on Drayton. I'll make a second to that. Any further conversation? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 7-0.
Sorry,
For installation of cross traffic does not stop will be referred to highway.
Point of the overgrowth foliage, is there anything
So,
If it's, yes, I forgot about that. So we can send, would that go to Bill to check the overgrown foliage on Denrose to see if it is in the right of way? If it requires any trimming? And then determine if it is town trees and foliage or private residence for proper action to clear that up through the intersection. Thank you for calling that out. With that, we will close item number 4 and move to item number 5.
Hey, Chairman.
So item number 5 is Heim Road parking near South Wedge Drive. Request for parking restrictions on Heim Road on both sides of South Wedge Drive.
Okay, South Wedge, is a residential street and local street, town-owned, and it intersects with Heim Road. The resident is asking for the parking restriction to be placed on Heim Road on both sides of South Wedge, just to clear up site distance. So I will show that. So here's the location. It is just southwest of the mosque. Parking is, I'll get into that in a second. The north side of Heim is parking restricted from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Fridays. There was one crash in the last 3 years for failure to stop at that stop sign. I don't think it was sight distance related. And this is the request. So no parking on the east side and no parking on the west side at South Wedge. Again, parking is allowed on that side of the road, specific to the nearby mosque, occurring on Fridays during prayer. They're not asking for any type of solution to the overflow parking. They are simply asking for a restriction to help them see when pulling out of South Wedge. That's all I got, Chairman.
Thank you. So technically, Chris, you're not supposed to park within 50 feet of the intersection, right?
No, that's not true.
That's not true?
You're not allowed to park within 30? 30 feet of a stop sign. And I think it's 25 feet in front of a crosswalk. So if there aren't those things there, you can park there.
Okay.
Do I have that clear?
There's distance for an intersection. I'll look it up.
Okay. I didn't.
So I guess that's the only thing that I'm looking, my mind here is if it's a visibility issue of people being able to turn, you do have a little bit of a turn in the road on the other, as you move to that side, on Heim Road, a little bit of a turn, bend in the road for those cars that would potentially be making coming from that direction. Not opposed to adding the no parking, but I'm just looking at the distance that we should do it. If it's 20 feet, 30 feet, 50 feet.
Sure. Wow. Depends how close you are.
So we can refer that to Bill again for enforcement of the clear vision triangle in the intersection to make sure it's clear as should be on both sides of that intersection. And then just looking for any thoughts from the remainder of the board regarding a parking restriction as requested in that area. I believe, Chris, if we do it just for what it should be, it doesn't require town board action, correct?
Yeah, that would require Captain Persons to enlighten us on the V&T law and how far that is in effect. But you're right, if it's X number of feet, then the highway can just post that sign without town board action.
If we look the other way,
Sure.
the other way is a little bit better. You do have cars coming, you do have a bend down the road. So if you have a car parked on that side, I could see it being, I would say the fence is fine. If you look at the clear vision triangle is what, 35 feet, Chris?
30.
30?
35? Okay. 35. Um, isn't Haim a town road?
Thought it was county. Didn't we have to have them
Is it county?
to repaint it to get rid of the passing zone in front of the school, in the school zone? Thought we'd send that to county. So, as Captain Pearsons continues to look that up, I think we can just make the motion to have highway post a no parking sign on Heim Road in, what's the word I'm looking for?
In accordance with the
Or
VNT
in
law?
accordance to- What did you call it?
VNT or vehicle and traffic law?
VNT traffic law at that intersection for highway to place the appropriate no parking sign for clarification on that intersection. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion by Eric, second by Kara. Any further conversation? None being heard. All in favor? Opposed? So motion carried 6-1. With that, Captain Pearsons can just coordinate with Chris and Highway as to what that distance is for Highway to post the sign. With that, we will close item number 5 and move to item number 6 for Aspenwood Drive.
Aspenwood, this is, resident request was, well, it was a concern, not a request. High rate of speeds, disregard for school buses or children at bus stops. We are close to Williamsville East High School off of Paradise. Aspenwood is this area here. You can see the traffic control devices. It is properly signed. There are no reported crashes. We did do a count out there. 85th percentile speed was in line with the speed limit posted, 29 and 28. Nothing excessively over 30. Peaks in the AM and PM, as you would, assume, particularly adjacent to the school. Most likely people are using that to get to the school. My email response back to the resident was that the results suggest that most drivers are operating their vehicles within expected and reasonable limits, and there's no statistical indication of widespread speeding in this location. But I did not want to, he asked that it come before this board, see if there's any other suggestions that you have in your review.
Open it up to the board for discussion or action. I will just agree with Chris that the speeds that we see on this street are consistent with what we would expect to see for a street that's posted at 30 miles per hour. Based on the distance of the street, I would think it's hard for a car to get going much faster than they already are. I would move to receive and file because there's really no action we could take here based on what the speeds are showing. And it's not being excessive. Is there a second to
I
receive
will
and
second
file?
that, Chairman.
Second from Kara. Any further conversation? None being heard. I will open it up to the board if there are any other new business items to bring to the attention of the board that require immediate action. None being heard. We will close the new business section and move to the old business. Old business A, bike path crossing at North Forest. We are still holding pending pedestrian counts that were being conducted. I believe those are in process, Chris?
Counts have been taken, and we will report that at the next meeting.
Okay. Maple Road, Old Lyme, Maple West Elementary, request for left turn arrows held pending an engineering study that is still being held, correct, Chris? Or also in progress?
Yeah, we received proposals and just trying to find the funding at this point.
Okay, so that will continue to be held. And we move to item letter C, Colladine Avenue between Longmeadow and Oxford for parking restrictions and resident survey results.
We do have an update on this one. Everyone should be familiar with the original request. It was actually between Longmeadow and Freeman. It was then extended after looking at the overall picture of Caledine to be between Oxford and Longmeadow. Here's a snapshot of the parking on both sides. When looking at this, the areas in red, the northern portions do not have restrictions. The southern portions, which happens to be 2 feet narrower, do have restrictions currently on the east side. When looking at the hydrant side, we confirm that it is on the east side, so the southern portion of Caledine is properly signed with no parking. So because we did not reach out to the entire extents after expansion of this request, you asked that I send out postcards to everyone to see if they're in favor or in opposition. This was the question posed, simple yes or no. And I did not share the exact address for this presentation, but you do have the exact addresses in your package. There were 4 people against it, 2 on the east side. 1 didn't provide an address. There were a fair amount of people that were in favor of it on the east side, as well as the west side. So these are your results. I'll pass it over to you guys.
Open it up to the board for action. So if we were to put the parking restriction in place, the parking restriction would go from on the east side of the street and extend
Yeah, from Longmeadow to Oxford.
Longmeadow to Oxford. Is there a motion to refer to the town board for the installation of the no parking on the east side based on the feedback that we have for the stretch as indicated?
Is there a threshold that we typically look for number of approvals?
No.
No. We look at the responses that we receive and resident feedback.
We're right at about 70%, so of the people who responded.
Right, so if we take this action, that does not mean that this would move forward. This would just refer to the town board to set a formal public hearing on it, which would give the residents in that area the opportunity to speak before the town board to express their concerns, or they would be notified of this, of the public hearing, which would then give them another opportunity to speak to it for the town board to take the action.
So Chairman Franz, you gotta be careful on the language there. Referring versus recommending. So if you recommended it, it holds a little more weight to the town board. You know, I would go before them and say it's recommended. Referring is just sending it off to them.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I mean, that we would recommend the installation of the no parking sign on the east side of the road. So is there a motion to do that? The alternative would be that we receive and file this agenda item.
Send it to the town board.
So there's a motion from Dan for the installation of no parking on the east side of the street between Longmeadow and Oxford. Is there a second? Helene makes the second. With that, any further conversation? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 7-0. To recommend the installation of the town board, that will be sent to Councilmember Zucala to write up that proposal. Referendum, right? Referendum.
It's
To the town board to take action to set public comment and move forward. Any other old business to bring before the board? Or any questions regarding old business? None being heard by the board. With that, we will thank our liaisons for their attendance this evening, and we will move to site plans with Scott Marshall and Chris. Our first site plan this evening, just give us a break to adjust here. We do have residents in the room this evening for site plan A. So we'll try to pull up what we can on the screens, paper, or you can come up and, you wanted to speak on it as well, right? So we'll give you, just get us reorganized here a little bit for this, and then we'll open it up for you to comment after Chris gives us the details on the site plan, Scott. Gets a little tricky at times going through these on the screens. Okay, you can. The ones that are on the agenda will be talked about, and I believe there's a couple additional as well. I don't know exactly. They're in the box. Which one are you looking for? There's a couple additional. So. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to site plan A, which is 2190, 2220 Worley Drive. This is a medium residential development. Chris has the site plans from the website that are available to us on Worley of what's being proposed.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Scott to get up on the mic and explain what you're being requested first, and then we'll go into what your condition was last month, and then what the response from the petitioner was, and then open it up for public comment. Does that sound good?
That sounds good. Okay. I don't think that one's on.
if they want follow the median density land use category, anything up to R6, all the way from median density to town board doesn't being asked to do is give us information basically to answer SEMA. What are traffic impacts associated with changing the land use from office use, which could be an entire site of 65-foot tall office buildings. Now, and their associated parking. To this case, and multifamily.
So
Thanks, Scott. Any questions for Scott?
I was just going to say, and from our meeting, we looked at this last month as well. We asked for information that Chris has, correct? Or in a response?
Yeah, so the condition you guys placed was specific to a review of the traffic impact study. The intersection that has been studied as part of this is a nearby intersection of Worley, Garrison, Lens Springs. This is something that comes to this board frequently. It also comes to the Village of Williamsville frequently in terms of issues that we have with timing and delays. This essentially does tell you that while the overall level of service, a grade given based on delay, as an overall of B, Ds, there's some struggling movements, specifically the westbound through and right on Worley, are failing in the PM. Every time the town adjusts this, something else gets broken. So we saw an opportunity with this development going in to ask for the petitioner, given that some of this anticipated trip traffic is now going through this intersection, we'll get to in a minute, to have them look at this and provide an updated timing plan. That was what the condition was. They came back, and I'm sorry, the people here, are you guys representing the petitioner or somebody else? Okay. So otherwise, I'd have you speak. But the petitioner came back with, okay. Petitioner came back with a letter that I think was provided in your package saying, I'm gonna paraphrase here. The project is adding 37 in the AM and 47 in the PM. This is just 2% of the overall traffic entering this intersection. We are asking that this condition be lifted, given that this is not significant in the overall operation of the intersection. So this letter is asking you to remove it with the justification that this is just a small portion of the overall entering vehicle traffic.
Okay, so with that, we will open it up to the residents here to speak regarding the site plan, and we have Wally Pacer signed in. If you'd like to come to the microphone.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name's Wally Pacer. I'm going to turn down my hearing aids a bit now. I didn't understand much of what you said, sir. But I am chairman of the Village of Williamsville Traffic and Safety Committee, and I'm here just to briefly tell you that I'm in favor of the stipulation, not stipulation,
Condition.
but
Condition.
the, item as set forth, the condition of approval, which candidly I look at as quite reasonable, given the traffic conditions, the E and F status at various times of the day, both in both directions. At Garrison and Worley, we have looked at this and looked at the timing with the assistance of Chris Schragle, and there is a problem. It is a holdup. We have seen, and I have gotten, and our committee has gotten tons of complaints. Minor accidents as a result of impatience of drivers, I'm sure, going around, knocking down trees. I've had it verified that our own DPW has had to replace trees in the area from Hirschfield going west to Garrison. Let alone whatever accidents there are that I've asked Amherst PD for counts on. But backups, of which I have also personally witnessed, because until just recently I lived on Monroe near Worley. Something has to be done, and whether you characterize 37 or 47, and ironically I've looked at numerous traffic consultant reports in just the village, and invariably every traffic consultant that we've had on the various projects done and approved, ironically, says no more than, and again, this is village, of which the max we've ever done, unlike the 332 that are projected for this development, 90, and there were 2 or 3 of those developments. And every traffic report says there's only 6 or 7, looking at Main and Mill, only 6 or 7 cars added to that intersection. But they're all F intersections. Something has to be done. And I think the condition that is placed on this developer to just go and essentially work with a plan that the town can implement, I submit to you is very reasonable, and I ask that you maintain it as is. I thank you for your time, and I'm open to any questions.
Okay, thank you. And Bill, did you want to speak as well?
My name is William Tyne. I live on Park Drive in the village of Williamsville. Chris, I love your wallpaper, by the way. Put Chateau de Chillon up there and leave it up there. It's great looking. Thank you. Yeah. This is an intersection in an area that I, live in the village, so I travel through it fairly frequently. I'm very familiar with it from my career, where for the better part of 40 years, I've been involved in development projects, both as a design consultant and as a developer as well in this corridor. And I've studied this area going back for decades, back to when those of you that are old enough remember, maybe Scott does, Jim Smith from EMS, looked at this intersection many, many times. We did College Park, we did Spindrift, we did Curtright, Lawrence Bell, Earhart, we did Limestone, we did just all of these developments that went in this area, my firms were involved with. And this intersection's been a problem for the entirety of my career. It's always had volume issues. As a village resident, we know, as Wally just said, there are issues with timing at that intersection. Of course, when you're looking at intersections, there's only so much time, and you're always robbing Peter to pay Paul. Whatever you do, wherever you assign time is coming from someone else is going to be penalized by it. So it's very difficult. Back when the county improved Worley Drive, it used to be a 2-lane road. I use this example all the time. Dan, I'm sorry, you've heard this from me 1,000 times. You're going to hear it one more time because these folks are too young. They've never heard it from me before. When we were looking at that corridor, Jim Smith was studying it. We did speed studies on that. And the studies came out that the average speed of a driver driving through the 2 lanes of Worley Drive that went through the village of Williamsville, the average speed of a driver there was 41 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone. When you pass Young's, between Young's and Transit, the speed limit jumps to 45. There was still 2 lanes in those days. The average speed of a driver on Worley Drive in the town where the speed limit increased to 45. Now, I won't make you take the quiz, but every time I ask someone this over the years, I'd always get, 51. The average speed of a driver through the town was 41 miles an hour. Drivers drive the speed they're comfortable driving based on the geometry of the configuration of the road construction. They don't drive to what the speed limit sign says. And so I cautioned the county when they were busy widening Worley to 3 lanes through the village and 5 lanes through the town, that you were going to increase speeds. And that's exactly what has happened. People drive, they don't go 41 anymore. They're doing closer to 55 out there now. And they're perfectly comfortable doing it because the road accommodates those speeds. The result of the village and the quality of life of village residents as this desire to constantly increase capacity on Worley Drive, a county road, a regional road, has been to sever the neighborhood in the village on the south side from the north side and the rest of the village. The kids that live in that neighborhood are trying to get to Garrison Park. It's a disaster for them trying to cross that road. And all the things you do to improve capacity and bring more cars down there just makes it worse. I asked the county in their public hearings when they were doing the Worley Drive improvements to traffic calm Worley and narrow it, not widen it, to take from the town, bring it down Young's and down Arrow Drive. Arrow Drive is an industrial corridor full of businesses adjacent to a major regional transportation hub, a place where those businesses would profit and benefit from the increased capacity on Arrow that would make those properties more valuable, bringing more tax revenue back to the town. That corridor connects to the transportation hub of the airport, which connects to the north-south state route of Transit Road, which connects to exit 49 for a major east-west route. All of these things tie together, but everyone continues to say, ram traffic down Worley Drive. Meanwhile, the village is worried about pedestrian accessibility and safety on Main Street. And there's traffic that avoids the throughway, where the regional network issues, this is a much bigger issue. And by the way, if I took the 37 cars coming out of Young's project and ran them through the intersection, it fits just fine. The only reason that intersection is stressed when you study it for Brian Young or ask him to study it on behalf of you through Seeker is because I'm driving through that intersection. You folks are driving through that intersection. Wally's driving through that intersection. The entire community uses it, but the last guy in is the guy that's supposed to pay for it. And what you end up doing when you take this philosophy of development and put this burden on the last guy in, by the way, his residents, the longer they live there, the more they're going to realize that they want to avoid that intersection at those level of service F times. They'll find alternative routes because they don't want to sit in a queue. So they'll bypass it. And the rest of the time when it's level of service B, have at it. The bigger issue is the signal timing, which is a disaster right now because I can sit at that light southbound on Garrison and it turns for one car And before I can get through as car number 2, it's already turned red. And that's literally the case at certain times in that intersection right now. That intersection continues to be a problem with the timing on that intersection. But the idea that you're going to do other issues to it without considering the larger network issues that improve the quality of life for people everywhere, when there's too much traffic on Main Street and it needs to be taken down the thruway, an interchange at Young's, and the much larger issues, which will benefit everyone, would be an interchange at Young's, so the traffic that doesn't want to be on Main Street and is avoiding tolls on the thruway is taking Main Street. And then the business association complains and says, we don't want to lose that traffic. Those are customers. I would submit to every business owner on Main Street, anyone driving 50 down Main Street isn't stopping to shop. Let them go. And so there are other issues there. And the intersection at Worley, I also asked the county way back when, even to the point of bringing Mark Lenters here from Roundabouts Canada and from Auerston Engineering in Wisconsin. He owned both firms, was one of the most famous roundabout consultants in the country, studied under Barry Crown from the UK. I brought him here to look at those intersections and say, that's the best thing you can do on Worley and Garrison. So put in a roundabout. If you want to get continuous movement of traffic, which, by the way, solves a lot of problems because it's no longer somebody that just missed the light and is pissed off because they got to sit there while everybody else gets to go and they were there first. And that makes drivers impatient and make poor decisions, which are dangerous to all of the rest of us. Where a roundabout, everybody takes their turn in sequence and nobody stops. They all keep going and it's safe for pedestrians to cross. That's a far better solution for that intersection than what the county did to it already. They ignored all of that. They didn't want to improve Arrow Drive back then. They just widened Worley to the detriment of those neighborhoods and those streets of Cadman, Brookside, Monroe, Columbia.
Are you asking for us to maintain our position of having them do the timing or not?
The letter that was submitted from Passero saying relieve them of this burden, that it's Brian Young's burden, I think is appropriate. I don't think the last guy in with that volume of traffic, he's going to contribute. It should be his problem. He should be allowed to move forward. I think when you put the burden on a developer and say, spend your money because you're the last guy in, fixing all of the infrastructure, it means you as a community, as the leaders in the town, then bear the obligation going forward to operate and maintain that infrastructure with no revenue coming back to pay for it because the budget for the project was squandered on infrastructure, on sewers 8 feet underground and traffic signals and right-hand turn lanes. And I will submit to you, the assessor of the town of Amherst will assign not one nickel of value to a right-hand turn lane and a traffic signal, but you will have to take care of it going forward. With lesser buildings built of poor quality and less value and no money to pay for it, and then everybody wonders, why are our taxes going up? That's not sensible. When the Holland Land Company came here and settled Western New York, they made someone superintendent of schools and they built one-room schoolhouses. They cut down trees and laid the logs down and built corduroy roads. They made someone superintendent of roads, someone superintendent of schools. They put in infrastructure. And they said to the rest of the pioneers, welcome to our community. Come join us. Today we say, you're a nuisance. We really don't want you here. Fix everything before you come. And it's not working. It's a foolish enterprise chasing your tail this way. So that's why I'm here to tell you to think globally, think more comprehensively, look at the bigger picture, and try to do the right thing in this regard. And this infrastructure is the obligation of the community. That's the foundation of the community. You don't build a house from the roof down. You build it from the footer up. The community, the municipalities put in the infrastructure that lets everyone else build the buildings that you do assess and tax and build a more beautiful community that people want to join.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, Chris, is there anything that we need to review on this at this point other than the response to the letter?
No, that was the only condition that's before you tonight.
how does this board feel at this point in holding firm on our request versus
Project does progress. At that point, they'll know what they want to do. Have another crack. This started out with plan. I know that's coming in actually reducing the number of units. By the time they get the site plan, drawing will be half the size of it.
So I think we should strongly consider removing the requirement. We can discuss it more, of course. I don't think it makes sense to have the developer cover our site planning or our traffic issues that are clearly there. Like, there's no dispute that there's a traffic problem or a capacity problem. But, so who is supposed to fix it? The developer that's trying to come in, or, you know, as a town, should it get addressed? So, that's my position.
And I just want to be clear on the scope. You know, William Tyne brought up infrastructure. This isn't, adding off-site mitigation, adding lanes. This is a signal timing plan. It's not a huge lift. I get his point, but it's not digging up lanes, adding, it's not significant off-site mitigation.
Separation of duties issue. Why have a developer who's not their core capability doing these traffic timings? It seems that's the wrong party to do this type of work.
any other comments from anyone on the board?
Well, in the September 19th letter from Passero, they grabbed these numbers out of, I don't know where, 37 trips in the morning and 47 in the afternoon. Usually traffic studies are an inch and a half thick. Okay, I don't know where they grabbed these numbers. I don't know whether to
Yeah,
believe them. I'd rather read them in a report.
They do check out. We did confirm that. They did submit a TIS. And here are the trips inbound and outbound on the screen. Outbound are the hollow arrows. Inbound are the solid arrows. So AM is always the first number. What you're looking at is the impact, the trip distribution from Uptown Apartments into this intersection. So you've got,
That's not in this letter, that's in a report,
yes,
which they didn't enclose here.
they submitted it previously. And I think I provided you a link to that.
I think it was in our
That's
packet
also on the
last month.
town's website.
I didn't go looking for it. I would have thought it would be in the letter. Mentioned there.
Right, I believe that was provided to us with our packet last month that we reviewed that warranted us putting the request for them to further study that intersection and provide the timing. So this is their response to us and our request from when we reviewed this at the meeting last month.
Understand that, but
So we don't,
I'm supposed to take this letter and then go back and reread the report.
Yeah, and they don't exactly match up because I think they made some changes too.
so with that, we'll do a roll call vote here as to if we want to maintain or dismiss. So maintain the request or dismiss the request. So with that, Kara?
I'll go dismiss from the perspective of this will likely come in front of us again.
Max?
Yeah, sure. Without further information, I'll say dismiss.
Patricia? I will move to dismiss as well. Dan?
Maintain the request.
Helene?
Dismiss.
And Nicholas? Okay, so with that, it is 6-1 that we will honor their response to dismiss the, what was it that we had on there?
Yep,
We had a,
we'll lift that condition, and like Scott said, you'll have another crack at it when the plans are revised and submitted as part of a site plan.
correct. Yep. Thank you. With that, we will close site plan A and we will move to site plan B.